Welcome to the Daily Influence, where our mission is to deliver a daily dose of positive influence that can uplift you personally or be shared within your sphere of influence. While not every episode may directly apply to your unique circumstances, we strive to provide insights and inspiration relevant to most people's daily, weekly, and monthly lives. Whether you are tuning in during the morning, noon, or night, the Daily Influence is here for you. Listen, share, and embrace the power of influence in your life. Hey everybody, Brian Smith here with the I Am Team series and the Daily Influence. We've previously talked about self-education, and our position on self-education is that humans have an obligation to educate themselves, to try to be as objective as they can, especially about the serious issues in our life, where it influences the other humans that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. It helps us to self-educate, to be that better person, to be that more positive influence. A lot of unintended consequences come from ignorance. Ignorance comes from a lack of education or a lack of listening or a lack of participating. We oftentimes want to put off what is or should be important to us because we're doing something that's more self-serving. We might be playing a game, watching videos on our phone because it's more interesting. What we forget is it's more interesting until we find ourselves in a situation where we are ignorant. When we had an opportunity to learn from listening, we had an opportunity to learn from participating, but we didn't because we allowed for the distractions. And sometimes those distractions turn into procrastination. Oh, I will do it later. I'm going to do this right now for myself, and I'll do it again later. And then we don't. And when we don't participate. And we don't participate, we become ignorant. We become ignorant to the things around us, where we're at any moment in time, maybe for a project, or for a relationship between myself and a family member or a friend. And because we're not participating, we're behind, we're distracted. And we become less of a positive influence because of procrastination and distraction than if we would just slow down and listen to understand, listen to learn, listen to participate. You don't always have to give an opinion either. If you're going to procrastinate, why don't you procrastinate what's coming out of our mouths sometimes? Use those pauses, use that opportunity to engage silently sometimes to learn. That's self-education. It's oftentimes difficult to keep our mouths closed in some situations because we think we're the smartest person in the room. How many times have you been around somebody who's constantly talking over everybody, and a good part of what they say isn't right, doesn't make sense, doesn't contextually fit? Because as humans, we know what's in our head. We know what we know what we think we know. And oftentimes we just start spouting off in situations without even understanding the context of where the conversation came from, where it is, or where it's going. Those things happen because of distraction. How many of you have been in a group of people where somebody's on their phone doing their thing and then they try to pipe in like they know what's going on? You can't track a conversation and focus on what's on your computer all at the same time. Maybe in little bits and pieces that might work, but the overall scope of whatever area of influence you find yourself, you can't do that. Multitasking is a distraction. Multitasking procrastinates one thing or the other. It puts off something. If you want to procrastinate something, procrastinate the self-serving nature of watching YouTube videos when you should be doing homework, finishing a project for work, playing with your children, spending time with your spouse. Procrastinate that. Don't procrastinate the things that ultimately you will find more important. Those interactions, those abilities to interact and engage with the people that you care about, overall will be way more important to you than that video you watched, that game you're playing, that moment where you satisfied that urge. to do whatever it is you're distracting yourself from. And maybe you find yourself in an area of influence where you're searching for a distraction. You need to slow down and ask yourself why. Why do I want to distract myself from this area of influence? Why don't I want to engage in my work? Why don't I want to engage in my relationships? Why don't I want to invest in the equity that I'll get back in these relationships and in these things in our lives? What is it that's causing me? For some of us, it might be things like ADD or ADHD. If you find yourself struggling with those, go get help for it. Don't just accept it and write it off and self-justify your behavior to that. Go and fix it. Self-educate yourself. Stop procrastinating to help yourself. Stop delaying in a way that will make you better and ultimately make your relationships better. I'm not talking about just relationships one-on-one. I'm talking about at work, with friends, with family, with yourself. You can't be your best self for others if you're not first your best self for you. And that doesn't have to be selfish. It should be a little selfish. The foundation of being your best self for others requires a little bit of selfishness. But it's not playing games and distracting yourself from your responsibilities of the positive influence and the responsible influence that you have. It's something entirely different contextually within your world. You have to define it. So if you're procrastinating, if you're delaying, if you're creating gaps in those areas of influence, in those relationships, slow down, listen to learn, listen from yourself and find out why. Get the help you need if you have to do that. Read a book. Ask somebody, talk about it, engage in your life. Get out of the phone, get out of the videos. Engage in your life and see what it can bring you. I think you will see that equality, equity, diversity, inclusion, positiveness will come from it ultimately, but it requires participation. I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you for joining us with the Daily Influence. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.